My name is Walter Hayes. I am 92 years old, and if you are 60 and thinking it's over, wake up, because if you quit at 60, you're burying a man who still has 30 years left to live. I watch them shuffle past my window every morning. Gray-haired men with their newspapers tucked under defeated arms, walking like they're already ghosts. They've convinced themselves the game is finished. They've swallowed the poison that 60 means countdown, that reaching retirement age means reaching the edge of relevance. And it makes me sick to my stomach because I know what they're throwing away. 30 years. That's what you have left if you're 60 today. 30 years of mornings, of decisions, of chances to become someone you've never been before. But you're standing there treating those 3 decades like spare change in your pocket, worthless and forgotten. You're looking at the longest stretch of potential freedom in your entire adult life and calling it a dead end. Let me break this down for you because apparently nobody else will tell you the truth. At 60, you likely have 25 to 35 years remaining. That's longer than most careers. That's enough time to build something from nothing, fail spectacularly, pick yourself up, learn from the wreckage, and still have time to win bigger than you ever imagined. You could start a business today and run it for 2 decades. You could learn a new skill and master it before you're 70. You could move to a different country, fall in love again, write a book, build a house with your own hands. But instead, you're standing at mile 13 of a 26-mile marathon and calling it finished. You're walking off the track while half the race stretches ahead of you, telling yourself you gave it your best shot. The finish line isn't even in sight yet, and you're already heading to the parking lot. This is what destroys me about watching men my age and younger. It's not that the body breaks down or the mind slows. Those are just facts of biology, obstacles to navigate like weather. What destroys me is watching the spirit collapse before it has to, watching men surrender decades before death asks them to. You're not too old. You're terrified. Terrified of starting at 0 when you spent 40 years building something that feels solid. Terrified of looking foolish when you've grown accustomed to being the expert in the room. Terrified of wasting what's left when you could be protecting what you've already accumulated. But here's the thing that'll make your blood boil once you really understand it. It's not age that's stopping you. It's ego. It's fear wrapped up in comfort addiction and tied with a bow of respectability. You'd rather coast on past achievements than risk present failure. You'd rather be important in a life that feels hollow than start over in a life that might mean something. The cruelest lie you've been sold is that life operates like a closing store. Everything on clearance, final markdowns, doors shutting soon. You walk through your days like a customer in a going out of business sale, grabbing whatever's left on the shelves before the lights go out. But that's not what's happening here. This isn't a liquidation. This is a second opening. You think because you've invested decades in one direction, you're trapped in that trajectory forever. Like time spent equals time owed. Like changing course at 60 invalidates everything that came before. But time invested doesn't require time continued. A 40-year career in accounting doesn't sentence you to die an accountant. A marriage that ended doesn't disqualify you from love. A business that failed doesn't brand you permanently as a failure. You're allowed to pivot at any age. You're allowed to walk away from what no longer serves you, even if walking away means admitting that 40 years pointed you toward the wrong destination. The courage to change direction isn't recklessness, it's wisdom, finally finding its voice. But the fear runs deeper than career change or fresh starts. What really paralyzes you is the prospect of beginner humiliation. At 60, you've earned respect. People listen when you speak. Your opinion carries weight in rooms where younger voices get dismissed. Starting over means losing that status, means becoming irrelevant in conversations that used to revolve around your expertise. You'd rather be important in a life you hate than invisible in a life you love. You'd rather maintain your position in a game that drains your soul than learn new rules in an arena where your experience might not matter. The throne you've built for yourself has become a prison, but at least it's a comfortable prison where everyone knows your name. Here's what you're forgetting. Mastery returns faster the second time around. The neural pathways that learn to learn are still intact. The pattern recognition that took you decades to develop doesn't disappear when you change fields. Wisdom compounds. The skills that made you successful in one area transfer in ways you can't even imagine yet. A 60-year-old beginner isn't the same as a 20-year-old beginner. You bring 4 decades of understanding human nature, of seeing how systems work and fail, of knowing what matters and what's just noise. You don't start from zero. You start from a foundation of hard-earned insight that can't be taught in any classroom. But there's something else eating away at you, something you probably won't admit out loud. You've watched other men your age fade once they stopped striving. You've seen what happens when the fire goes out. When a fire stops burning, it doesn't rest. It goes cold. And cold things don't come back to life easily. Men who stop moving start dying long before their hearts stop beating. The body follows the mission, and when the mission disappears, the body gets confused about its purpose. Your muscles weren't built to maintain a recliner. Your mind wasn't designed to consume television. Your spirit wasn't created to manage decline. You don't need retirement. You need a reason. You need something that makes you wake up with intention instead of obligation. Something that makes you care about tomorrow instead of just surviving today. The decay you fear isn't about getting older. It's about getting purposeless. And purpose isn't something that expires at 65. I've buried too many friends who died of boredom disguised as relaxation. Men who worked their entire lives for the privilege of doing nothing, only to discover that nothing is exactly what they got. They traded their remaining years for security, their potential for predictability, their fire for a pension plan that couldn't keep them warm when the real cold set in. What makes me angriest is how you've been trained to see age as a disability instead of an advantage. A 20-year-old has speed but no direction, energy but no wisdom, passion but no patience. You have pattern recognition that took decades to develop. You have networks built on trust and proven reliability. You have emotional control that comes from surviving every kind of crisis at least once. You don't need more time. You need better aim. You don't need another 40 years to figure out what matters. You already know. The question isn't whether you have enough years left. It's whether you'll use the years you have for something that makes the previous 60 worth celebrating instead of surviving. But here's the part that should terrify you into action. If you wait 5 more years to start, you will be 65 anyway. Time doesn't pause while you work up courage. The calendar doesn't care about your comfort zone. You can arrive at 70 proud of what you built in your final decade, or you can arrive at 70 bitter about what you were too scared to attempt. But you will arrive at 70. Today matters because momentum matters. The small step you take this morning builds into the stride that carries you toward something meaningful. The phone call you make today connects you to the opportunity that changes everything next month. The skill you start learning this week becomes the expertise that defines your next chapter. Delay compounds just like interest, but in reverse. Every day you postpone action makes the next day's action feel more impossible. Every week you spend convincing yourself you're too old is a week that actually makes you older in the ways that matter. Not your body, but your willingness to bet on yourself. I think about the men I've known who made their biggest impact after 60. They didn't succeed because they ignored their age. They succeeded because they leveraged it. They used their experience as a competitive advantage instead of treating it like a burden. They understood that being older didn't make them less capable. It made them more strategic. The business owner who sold his company at 62 and started a nonprofit that changed how we think about education. The engineer who retired from Boeing and spent 15 years building schools in villages that had never seen electricity. The accountant who discovered he could write and published his first novel at 68, then wrote 12 more before he died. These weren't exceptional men. They were men who refused to accept the narrative that 60 means sunset. They looked at their remaining years and saw raw material, not leftover time. They understood that the only difference between a second act and a slow fade is the decision to keep writing the story. My name is Walter Hayes. I am 92 years old. If I had quit at 60, I would have missed the best years of my life, the years when I finally understood what I was built for, the years when I stopped trying to impress other people and started trying to impact them, the years when I realized that everything I'd learned in my first 6 decades was just preparation for what came next. Don't die while your heart is still beating. Don't waste 30 years because you're afraid of 10 hard ones. Don't surrender the game at halftime because you're tired of playing defense. Wake up.